I think that is certainly of high symbolic significance, but one has to say that these actions by Ukraine, both this attack on Moscow and also the land invasion in the Kursk region, are, from my point of view, signs of desperation. Ukraine is trying to change the conversation on the war because it does not have enough resources to simply liberate the occupied territories, and therefore it's looking for unconventional ways to change the war.
Well, Russia is struggling to push Ukrainian forces out of its Kursk region. What is Moscow doing to defend itself in those areas?
Well, it is trying to defend the own territory, the legitimate Russian state territory, with its army. Apparently, there are not enough troops there. Most of the troops are engaged in the Donbas, and Russia has problems assembling, both in terms of quantity and quality, adequate troops. And so far, actually, Ukraine is advancing in the Kursk region and is getting more and more territory. And I think the main aim of Ukraine will be to hold this territory as long as possible.
How much Russian territory does Kyiv control now? And what has President Vladimir Zelensky said about the operation so far? Can you tell us more?
The numbers are changing here. We have now a different square meter, so to say, being quoted, what is under actual control of Ukraine. It seems to be that more than 1,000 square kilometers and apparently already around 100 settlements being controlled, which is quite extraordinary in such a short time. And the gamble here, I think, of Ukraine is to get Russia into negotiations about a land for land deal. And I would actually think that the most important role in all of that to play will be for countries like China, India, Brazil, which are partners or neutral towards Russia, and which could now use this moment to push Russia into negotiations with Ukraine.
Well, Russian troops are advancing in eastern Ukraine through, though more towns are being captured, and children are also reported hurt.
Well, that was also the case, let's say, in World War II, when Europe was liberated from fascism. That, of course, the Allied armies, when they were advancing in the 1940s and bombing German cities, they were also killing lots of civilians, including children. But there's no rationale here for Ukraine to conduct a terror war against Russia in the same way in which Russia this is doing in Ukraine, where Russia is targeting actually even children's hospitals.
Is there any clarity over who has been gaining the upper hand in recent weeks?
It's a two-sided game. Ukraine is advancing in the Kursk region. Russia has smaller but also significant advances in the Donbas. Both of these countries are very large, and if you look at the map, it's actually, if you look on the map of the whole of Europe, it doesn't look very impressive on either side. The remarkable thing here about the Ukrainian advance is how quick it has been and how deep it has been into Russian territory.
And Ukraine's parliament has also voted to ban the Russian-linked Ukrainian Orthodox Church. Why has it done this, and what impact will it have on attitudes towards the conflict, do you think?
Many have argued that this should have happened long ago. The Russian Orthodox Church, to which this branch in Ukraine belongs, is closely linked to the Russian state and to the Russian government. And there's a very peculiar special relationship historically between the Russian state and the Russian Orthodox Church. And it had this branch in Ukraine, and the perception has always been that this is actually this so-called Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Moscow Patriarchy is actually an agent of Putin.
And presumably more Russian citizens now are aware of the fighting that is going on than compared to when the conflict first began. What has been the reaction to the incursion by Ukraine?
We don't have many reports on that because not so many journalists are left in Russia because some of them have been arrested. But the reports that we do get from certain journalists seem to indicate that this incursion into the legitimate Russian state territory, not the annexed territories, is taken very seriously, and that ordinary Russians know the difference between the real Russian territory and the illegally annexed territories very well.
Moscow has accused the US, Britain and Poland of helping with Ukraine's incursion into Kursk. What has been the reaction to this? And do we know exactly how much help is Kyiv getting?
We will only know when the archives will be opened on that. There is a discussion how much the West knew about this operation. I wouldn't say that there is a direct help from the West for exactly this operation. I think most people in the West are actually worried by that. They would have probably voted against it because it is certainly an escalation. But from a Ukrainian point of view, such an escalation made sense because the attrition war would have been otherwise continuing, and the prospect was that the attrition war would go on for years and years. Whereas now it looks as if there may soon be some sort of ending to the war.
Dr. Andreas Umland, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate talking to you.
Thanks for having me.